The smell of burnt sugar filled my parents' dining room, but it wasn't coming from any of my baking experiments. It was the acrid stench of another one of my dreams going up in flames. I'm Sawyer, and I've spent 29 years watching my younger brother's half-baked schemes get served up with a heaping side of parental approval, while my own ambitions got tossed in the trash. A bakery? My father's fork clattered against his plate. You want to throw away your finance career to sell cupcakes? It's not just cupcakes, Dad. I straightened my spine, gripping my water glass to keep my hands from shaking. I've done the market research. There's no artisanal bakery in this part of town, and with my business background. Speaking of business, my mother cut in, beaming at my brother across the table. Kyson, tell your sister about your new venture. Kyson lounged back in his chair, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. It's gonna be huge. We're talking cryptocurrency meets social media meets. Mom, Dad, please. I set down my glass before I could crack it. I didn't come here for Kyson's elevator pitch. I came to tell you I'm using my bonus to open Sweet Victory Bakery. Honey. Mom reached across the table, her fingers brushing my wrist. We know you love baking, but it's just a hobby. Kyson's new platform could revolutionize. Like his dating app revolutionized things? The words shot out before I could stop them. Or his subscription box service, or his... Those were learning experiences, Dad snapped. At least your brother has vision. You're talking about throwing away a six-figure salary to play Betty Crocker. I'm not playing at anything. I pulled out my phone, pulling up the business plan I'd spent months perfecting. Look at these projections. I've already found the perfect location and my friend Tiara. Your bonus could really help Kyson get his new venture off the ground, Mom said softly. Family should support family. I looked at Kyson, who was typing away on his phone, probably tweeting about his next big thing. He hadn't even bothered to ask what kind of bakery I wanted to open. You're right, Mom. I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Family should support family. That's why I came here tonight, hoping you'd finally support me. Sawyer, sit down, Dad ordered. We're not finished discussing this. Actually, we are. I grabbed my purse. I signed the lease this morning. The bonus is already in escrow. You what? Mom's face went pale. Without consulting us? I'm 29 years old. I don't need consultation to invest my own money in my own dream. Kyson finally looked up from his phone. Come on, Saw. Don't be dramatic. Just hear me out about my project. It's guaranteed to fail? I laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. Like everything else you've tried? The difference is, I've been planning this for years. I've been taking night classes in business management. I've been apprenticing with Bo at his bakery every weekend. I'm not jumping into this blind. You're making a mistake, Dad said, his voice hard. When this fails, I corrected, and if it does, I'll handle it myself, just like I've handled everything else. I walked to the door, pausing with my hand on the knob. You know what the funny thing is? I actually thought you'd be proud of me for once, for having the courage to chase my dream instead of just talking about it. Sawyer, Mom started, the bakery opens in 6 weeks. You're all welcome to come. I pulled open the door, but only if you're ready to actually taste what I'm capable of. The door clicked shut behind me, and I stood on the porch, letting the cool evening air dry the tears I refused to shed. My phone buzzed. A text from Kiara. How'd it go? I typed back. Exactly as expected. Meet me at Bo's. Her response was immediate. On my way, first round of stress baking is on me. Walking to my car, I felt lighter than I had in years. Maybe it was because I'd finally stood up to them, or maybe it was because, for the first time in my life, I wasn't asking for permission to be myself. Either way, I knew one thing for certain. Sweet Victory Bakery wasn't just going to be a business. It was going to be proof that sometimes the best revenge is served fresh from the oven, with a sprinkle of success on top. 6 weeks flew by in a blur of flour, sugar, and sleepless nights. Opening day at Sweet Victory Bakery arrived with the smell of fresh croissants and nervous energy. These display cases are spotless, Bridget said, adjusting a tray of raspberry Danish. I've cleaned them 3 times already. Make it 4, I replied, rearranging macarons for the 10th time. Everything has to be perfect. Tira burst through the back door, holding a massive bouquet. First delivery of the day. Card says it's from Beau. I plucked the card from the flowers. To the newest baker on the block. Show them what you're made of. That man's a saint. The bell above the door chimed, and my heart stopped. But it wasn't my family, just our first customer. Then another, and another. By noon, the display cases were half empty, and Bridget was starting a third batch of chocolate croissants. The lunch rush brought in curious office workers, and word of mouth did the rest. Your sourdough is incredible, an elderly woman told me, clutching her paper bag. I haven't tasted bread like this since I left Europe. I was boxing up her order when my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Kyson's big announcement tonight. Family dinner at 7. Don't be late. Everything okay? Kiara asked, noticing my expression. Family dinner tonight. Kyson's announcing his new venture. On your opening day? That's not a coincidence. Of course it's not. I handed the box to the customer. But I'm going anyway. They need to see I can do both. Run this place and still show up for family. The rest of the afternoon passed in a whirlwind of customers and compliments. At 6:30, I changed out of my flour-dusted clothes and headed to my parents' house, bringing a box of our best-selling items. I walked in to find Kyson holding court in the living room, laptop open on the coffee table. Perfect timing, sis. He waved me over. I'm just showing Mom and Dad the projection slides. How was your bakery's first day? Mom asked, but her eyes never left Kyson's screen. It was... Look at these numbers, Kyson interrupted, pointing at his laptop. We're talking serious ROI within the first quarter. I just need some seed money to get it off the ground. Dad nodded approvingly. How much are we talking? 200,000, but it's practically guaranteed. 200,000? I nearly dropped the pastry box. That's more than double what I invested in my entire bakery. This is different, Dad said dismissively. This is a tech startup. The potential return is exponential. I set the box on the coffee table. I brought some samples from today. We sold out of almost everything, but I saved these for you. Mom glanced at the box. That's nice, dear. Kyson, tell us more about the user interface. I watched as they fawned over Kyson's PowerPoint presentation, complete with buzzwords and pie charts that made no sense. The pastries sat untouched. We've already committed to backing him, Dad announced proudly. Your mother and I are liquidating some investments. Your what? I stood up so fast my head spun. After all his failed ventures? Failed? Kyson scoffed. They were learning experiences. This time it's different. I've got investors lined up. Then why do you need Mom and Dad's money? Because they believe in me. He slammed his laptop shut. Unlike some people. I believe in reality, I shot back. And the reality is, I just opened a successful business with less than half of what you're asking for. A cute little bakery isn't exactly disrupting the tech industry, he sneered. No, it's just feeding actual people and turning an actual profit on day one. Mom stood between us. That's enough. Sawyer, if you can't be supportive... Supportive? I laughed. Like you were this morning when you couldn't even show up to my opening? The room fell silent. I picked up the untouched pastry box. You know what? Keep the money in the family. But when this falls apart, and it will, don't come crying to me. It won't fall apart, Dad insisted. Your brother has a real vision this time. So do I said quietly. But you'd have to actually visit my bakery to see it. I walked out again, but this time I wasn't sad. I was angry and determined. My phone buzzed. Bridget sending me tomorrow's pre-orders. We were already booked solid for custom cakes through the next month. I typed back, get ready for an early morning. We're going to show this town what a cute little bakery can do. Let Kyson have his parents' money and approval. I had something better, a real business, built with my own hands that was already proving them all wrong. 3 months after opening day, I was elbow deep in cookie dough when Bridget rushed into the kitchen, eyes wide. Your parents are here, she whispered. They're standing in the middle of the morning rush, looking confused. I wiped my hands on my apron. Of course they show up during our busiest time. The line stretched out the door, our new normal since the local paper had featured us last week. Mom and Dad stood awkwardly near the register, taking in the exposed brick walls and the constant stream of customers clutching coffee cups and pastry bags. Welcome to Sweet Victory, I said, stepping behind the counter. First time here? Mom's eyes darted around the packed cafe. We were in the neighborhood. The neighborhood you haven't visited in 3 months? I started boxing up a selection of our best sellers. Try the lavender honey scones. They're why we had the TV crew here yesterday. TV crew? Dad's head snapped up. Local morning show. They're doing a segment on successful new businesses. I handed them the box. On the house. Before they could respond, Kira called from the register. Sawyer, the wedding consultation is here. Wedding consultation? Mom echoed. We're doing 3 wedding cakes this weekend. I gestured to the portfolio on the counter. We're booked solid through summer now. Excuse me, I have customers waiting. I spent the next hour walking a bride through cake designs while watching my parents from the corner of my eye. They sat at a corner table, picking at their pastries and watching the constant flow of customers. Is that really your parents? The bride asked, following my gaze. My mom says she has to make reservations just to get your weekend brunch pastry boxes now. They must be so proud. I forced a smile. You'd think so, wouldn't you? Just then, Kyson burst through the door, face flushed. He barely acknowledged our parents before making a beeline for me. We need to talk, he hissed, privately. I'm with a client. It's important. I apologized to the bride and followed Kyson to the back office. He closed the door and started pacing. The investors pulled out, he blurted. All of them, the whole thing's falling apart. The guaranteed success? The exponential returns? Don't. He ran his hands through his hair. The development team hit some snags, and costs are spiraling. Mom and Dad's investment, it's almost gone. I leaned against my desk, letting that sink in. How much is almost? Like, all of it. He wouldn't meet my eyes. And there might be some other debts? Jesus, Kyson. I pushed away from the desk. How bad? Bad enough that Mom and Dad might lose their... A knock interrupted us. Bridget poked her head in. Sorry, but the health inspector is here for our quarterly check, and the local business association wants to talk about featuring us in their holiday campaign. Be right there. I turned back to Kyson. We'll discuss this later. There might not be a later. The creditors are... Should I tell Mom and Dad about this conversation? His face paled. No, they don't know how bad it is yet. I was hoping maybe you could... Could what? Bail you out? With my cute little bakery money? Sawyer, please, I'm desperate here. I opened the door. So was I every time I needed support. Funny how things turn out, isn't it? Back in the main room, Mom and Dad were still at their table, watching me with new eyes as I guided the health inspector through our spotless kitchen. They saw the respect in his nods. heard the pride in my staff's voices as they explained our procedures. Perfect score again, the inspector announced, signing off on his forms. Keep up the excellent work. Mom stood up as I passed their table. Sawyer, we had no idea. No, you didn't. I straightened a display of fresh croissants. Because you never bothered to look. Your brother, Dad started, will probably be asking for your help again soon. I met their eyes. Maybe this time think carefully about where you invest your trust. They left shortly after, taking their half-eaten pastries with them. Through the window, I watched them talk intensely in the parking lot, probably about Kyson's latest disaster. Ciara appeared at my shoulder. You okay? Better than okay. I picked up a piping bag. We've got orders to fill, a business to run, and success to bake. And Kyson's problems? I started piping delicate roses onto a celebration cake. Let's just say karma comes in all flavors. Some are just sweeter than others. The afternoon sun streamed through our windows, catching on the gold lettering that spelled out Sweet Victory Bakery. Outside, another line was forming for our afternoon tea service. Inside, I was finally serving up the one thing my family had never given me, respect, and it tasted better than any revenge I could have planned. The family ambush came on a Tuesday afternoon, right as I was finishing a batch of macarons. Mom, Dad, and Kyson filed into my office like a funeral procession, with Kyson looking particularly grave. We need to talk, Dad said, closing the door. I'm busy. I kept piping. We have a corporate event tomorrow. Please, Mom's voice cracked. This is important. I set down the piping bag. More important than my last 3 dinner invitations that you all skipped? This is serious. Kyson stepped forward. The creditors are threatening legal action. They're talking about putting liens on Mom and Dad's house. And this is my problem because you're the only one who can help. Kyson exploded. Your bakery's doing great. Everyone knows it. The local papers, the TV spots. So now my cute little bakery matters? I crossed my arms. Now that you need something? Dad cleared his throat. We were wrong, okay? We should have supported you from the start. Should have? I laughed. You actively tried to stop me. You wanted me to give my money to him. I pointed at Kyson for what turned out to be another failure. I know I messed up, Kyson said quietly, but Mom and Dad shouldn't lose their house because of me. They shouldn't have invested money they couldn't afford to lose. Sawyer, Mom stepped closer, tears in her eyes. We're not just asking for money. We're asking for your help, your business expertise. You've proven you know what you're doing. Now I have expertise. 3 months ago, I was playing Betty Crocker. A knock interrupted us. Bridget opened the door. Sorry, but the magazine photographer is here for the Top 30 Under 30 shoot. Tell them I'll be right there. Top 30 Under 30? Dad's eyebrows shot up. Regional Business Magazine. I straightened my apron. Turns out selling cupcakes can be pretty prestigious when you do it right. Kyson slumped against the wall. So you won't help? I studied my brother, really looked at him for the first time in months. His designer clothes were wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. He looked beaten. I didn't say that. Hope flickered across his face. Really? I'll think about it. But if, and that's a big if, I help, it'll be on my terms. Anything, Mom said quickly. Whatever you want. I want a family meeting. Tomorrow night, here at the bakery, after closing. I picked up my piping bag again. I'll lay out my conditions then. Conditions? Dad frowned. Did you think I'd just write a check and forget how you've treated me for years? I started piping again. This isn't charity, it's business. But, Kyson started. Tomorrow at 8. I cut him off. Don't be late and come hungry. I'm testing new recipes for the fall menu. They filed out, shoulders slumped but with a hint of hope. Through my office window, I watched them cross the parking lot, huddled together like survivors of a storm. Ciara slipped in as they left. That looked intense. They want my help with Kyson's mess. And you're considering it? She raised an eyebrow. After everything? I'm considering making them earn it. I finished the last macaron. Remember that contract template your lawyer sister sent over? The partnership agreement? That's the one. Can you get me a copy? I need to make some modifications. Ciara's eyes widened. You're not seriously thinking of making Kyson a partner? No. I smiled. I'm thinking of making him learn what real business looks like, from the ground up. You're going to make him work here? If he wants my help, he's going to learn every aspect of running a successful business, starting with morning prep at 4 a.m. Bridget popped her head in. The photographer's waiting. Coming. I stood up, brushing flour from my apron. Oh, and Bridget, clear the schedule for tomorrow night. We're hosting a very special family dinner. Should I make your famous revenge cake? She grinned. No. I straightened my shoulders. Make the humble pie, extra humble. As I walked to meet the photographer, I caught my reflection in the bakery window. I saw someone I barely recognized, not the shadow of my younger brother, but a successful business owner about to teach her family a lesson in respect. Tomorrow night, I'd serve up a slice of reality with a side of consequences, and this time, they'd have no choice but to take a bite. At exactly 8 o'clock, my family sat around one of our rustic wooden tables, staring at the spread before them. I'd laid out a feast, everything that had made Sweet Victory famous in just 3 months. Before we discuss terms, I said, sliding into my seat, let's talk numbers. How bad is it really, Kyson? He pulled out a crumpled stack of papers. 243,000. That's more than Mom and Dad invested, I noted. There were additional loans. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Personal guarantees. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. Personal guarantees. You said the investment was secured. Can we focus on solutions? Mom pleaded, reaching for a cheese Danish with trembling fingers. That's why we're here. I pulled out 3 manila envelopes. My terms. Kyson grabbed for an envelope, but I held them back. First, eat. Everything on this table represents what actual success looks like. I want you to taste what you've been dismissing. They ate in silence. I watched their faces as they tried each item. The sourdough that took me 6 months to perfect, the croissants that required 3 days of preparation, the signature cake that had won us our first wedding contract. This is, Dad swallowed hard. This is incredible, Sawyer. I know. I slid the envelopes across the table. Now, let's talk about how we fix your mess. They opened the envelopes. Mom gasped. Kyson's face went pale. You want me to work here? He sputtered. As a trainee? 6 months, minimum wage, starting with morning prep at 4 a.m. I tapped the contract. You'll learn every aspect of running a real business. No shortcuts, no excuses. But my tech career is over, I finished, at least until you pay back every penny you owe. And us? Dad asked, reviewing his paper. You'll both take small business management classes at the community college, the same ones I took while working full-time, and you'll spend 1 shift per week here, seeing what your daughter built while you weren't looking. These terms are ridiculous, Kyson protested. More ridiculous than losing your parents' house? I leaned forward. More ridiculous than watching them liquidate their retirement to fund your fantasy? Mom wiped her eyes. We'll do it. Margaret, Dad started. No, Henry, look around. She gestured at the bakery. Our daughter built this while we were too busy enabling Kyson's failures. We owe her this much. There's more, I said, pulling out another document. Once the debt is paid and if, big if, Kyson completes his training successfully, I'll consider taking him on as a junior partner in a new venture. Kyson's head snapped up. New venture? I'm planning to expand, a second location, maybe a wholesale operation, but only with someone who understands real business, not get rich quick schemes. And the money? Dad asked quietly. How much can you? I'll cover the debts. I slid over a cashier's check, but only after all three of you sign these contracts. Break them, and I'll demand immediate repayment. Kyson stared at the contract, then at the bustling bakery around us. You really start at 4 a.m.? Sharp. Bridget will train you. She's strict, by the way, doesn't tolerate excuses. And the business classes? Mom asked. Tuesday and Thursday evenings. I've already enrolled you both. Bo, my mentor, teaches some of them. They sat in silence, reading through the terms. Finally, Dad reached for a pen. You're either brilliant or cruel, he said, signing his name. I learned from the best. I watched as Mom and Kyson signed too. Welcome to the real world of business, family. Hope you like the taste of humble pie. When do we start? Kyson asked, already looking uncomfortable. You? Tomorrow morning. Don't be late. Bridget hates that. I gathered the signed contracts. Mom, Dad, your first class is next week. I expect full attendance and completed homework. As they prepared to leave, Mom paused. We really are proud of you, Sawyer. We should have said it sooner. Actions speak louder than words, I replied. Show me with your commitment to these terms. After they left, Kira emerged from the kitchen. Think they'll actually follow through? They better. I looked at the signed contracts. Because this is their last chance to prove they see me as more than just Kyson's big sister. And if they fail, I smiled, sliding the contracts into my safe. Then they'll learn what I already know. Success tastes sweetest when you earn it yourself. Through the window, I watched them drive away, their faces still processing the evening's events. Tomorrow would be Kyson's first 4 a.m. wake-up call and my parents' first step toward understanding what their daughter had achieved. Let the lessons begin. 2 weeks into our new arrangement, I arrived at 3:45 a.m. to find Kyson already waiting outside, dark circles under his eyes, but on time for once. Bridget's been making me come 15 minutes early, he mumbled, suppressing a yawn. Says if I'm not early, I'm late. Smart woman. I unlocked the door. Ready to learn laminated dough today? I still have burns from yesterday's lesson. Those aren't burns, I laughed. They're badges of honor. Wait until you start working with caramel. Inside, Bridget was already setting up the prep stations. She'd taken to training Kyson with a drill sergeant's precision, and surprisingly, he hadn't quit yet. Your brother's getting better, she whispered as Kyson tied on his apron. He only ruined one batch of brioche yesterday. The morning proceeded smoothly until Bo walked in through the back door, carrying a stack of folders. Quarterly supplier reviews, he announced, then stopped short at the sight of Kyson covered in flour. Well, look who finally joined the real world. You know each other? I asked. Oh, we go way back. Bo set down the folders. Your brother here tried to get me to invest in 3 different schemes. What was the last one? The social media thing for pets? Kyson's face reddened. It was a revolutionary platform. It was a mess, Bo cut in. Just like the dating app and the subscription box service. I tried to warn your parents, but they wouldn't listen. I froze in the middle of scoring croissants. You warned them? Multiple times. Bo crossed his arms. Showed them the market research, the flawed business plans, everything. They said I just didn't understand modern business. The scoring knife clattered onto the counter. They knew? They knew his businesses were doomed? They chose to believe what they wanted to believe. Bo shrugged. Just like they chose not to see what was right in front of them with you. Kyson stared at the floor, hands covered in dough. I didn't know you tried to warn them. Of course you didn't. Bo picked up a rolling pin. You were too busy chasing unicorns to see the real opportunities around you. Like this place. He gestured at the bakery. Your sister built this while you were playing entrepreneur. The morning rush prep continued in tense silence. At 6, Mom arrived for her weekly shift, looking more comfortable in her bakery apron than I'd expected. The regulars are starting to know my name, she said proudly, then noticed the atmosphere. What's wrong? Ask Bo, I said quietly. About all those warnings he gave you about Kyson's ventures. Mom's smile faded. Sawyer, we can explain. Can you? I checked the proofing drawer. Can you explain why you ignored professional advice about Kyson, but couldn't even show up to my opening day? We thought, she trailed off. You thought he needed you more, Bo finished. But he needed you to say no, and Sawyer needed you to say yes. The first customers would arrive soon. I turned to Kyson, who hadn't moved from his workstation. Start the coffee prep, I ordered. Mom, get the display cases ready. We'll discuss this later. But as the morning progressed, watching them work, really work, for the first time in their lives, something shifted. Kyson's hands were steady as he worked the espresso machine. Mom's voice was confident as she explained our pastry selection to customers. During the mid-morning lull, Bo pulled me aside. They're learning, he said. Sometimes the hardest lessons come from watching someone else succeed. I'm not sure I can forgive them, I admitted, for knowing the truth and still choosing his failures over my success. Maybe that's not the point. Bo nodded toward Kyson, who was carefully crafting his first latte art. Maybe the point is making sure they never make the same mistake again. The morning rush picked up again, and I watched my family move through the choreography of the bakery. They were different people than they'd been 2 weeks ago, humbler, harder working, finally understanding what it meant to build something real. My phone buzzed. Dad sending his completed homework from his business class, asking for feedback. Another text followed. Your professor said my analysis of Sweet Victory's business model was spot on. I'm starting to understand what you built here. I typed back, understanding is just the beginning. Wait until you see what's next. Because that's the thing about real success. It's not about revenge or proving people wrong. It's about proving yourself right over and over until even the doubters have to believe. And watching my family finally learn that lesson, that was sweeter than any revenge I could have planned. 1 month later, I called an emergency family meeting. The bakery was closed, but the lights blazed as I spread documents across our largest table. Is everything okay? Mom asked, sliding into her seat. You sounded serious on the phone. Just wait. I checked my watch. Kyson should be here any... The door chimed. Kyson rushed in, still in his flour-dusted uniform from the morning shift. Sorry I'm late. The wholesale orders took longer than expected. Sit down, I said, pushing a folder toward each of them. We need to talk about what Bo told me. Dad's face fell. Sawyer, we can explain. No. I held up my hand. I've been doing some digging, going through old records, talking to Bo, checking with the business registry. I pulled out a stack of papers. You didn't just ignore his warnings. You mortgaged the house 3 times to fund Kyson's ventures. Mom started crying. You thought he'd succeed eventually, I finished, while actively sabotaging his chances by never making him face consequences. That's not fair, Dad protested. No? I spread out more documents. What about the time you pulled money from my college fund for his first startup? Or when you convinced Aunt Linda to invest her savings in his dating app? Kyson's head snapped up. You used Sawyer's college fund? We paid it back, Dad mumbled. With what? I demanded, The money you should have been saving for retirement, the equity from your house, the loans you're still paying off. The silence was deafening. Outside, the street was dark and empty, but inside, years of secrets were finally coming to light. I had no idea, Kyson whispered, about any of this, because they protected you from reality. I turned to our parents, and in doing so, they hurt everyone, including you. Mom wiped her eyes. We just wanted to help? I laughed bitterly. Look where that got us. A mountain of debt, a house in jeopardy, and a son who never learned to stand on his own feet. Until now, Kyson said quietly. He pulled out his own papers, daily sales reports from his shifts, customer feedback, even a rough business plan. I've been learning, Sawyer, really learning. These past weeks have shown me what I was doing wrong all along. Show them, I nodded toward our parents. Kyson spread out his work. Every failed venture, I was chasing shortcuts, but here? He gestured around the bakery. Everything takes time, preparation, attention to detail. You can't rush perfection. Dad picked up one of Kyson's reports. You did all this analysis yourself? Bridget's been teaching me. Did you know our morning prep schedule is synchronized to maximize oven efficiency? Or that each recipe is tested 30 times before it goes on the menu? That's what real business looks like, I said, not PowerPoint presentations and empty promises. We were wrong, Mom admitted, about everything. The way we treated you, the way we enabled Kyson. The question is, I leaned forward, what are you going to do about it? Dad straightened in his chair. We'll sell the house, pay off the debts ourselves. No. I pulled out one final document. You're going to let me help, the right way this time. What do you mean? Sweet Victory is expanding. We're opening a second location. I slid the paper across the table. If you all agree to continue your training, to work as hard as you have been, I'll handle the debts. But this time, we do it as a real family business. You'd trust us? Kyson asked. After everything? I trust the people you're becoming, I corrected. The ones who show up at 4 a.m., who do the hard work, who finally understand what it means to build something real. Mom reached for the document with trembling hands. We don't deserve this chance. No, you don't. But that's what family does. Gives chances to those who earn them. And you're finally earning it. Kyson stood up suddenly, walking to the window. The Sweet Victory sign cast a warm glow on his face. I want to run the new location, he said. Not as the boss, as a student. Learning from the ground up, doing it right this time. That's the first smart business decision you've ever made, I smiled. We spent the next hour going over plans, real plans, built on hard work and honest numbers. As my family signed the new agreements, I saw something I'd never seen before. Respect in their eyes, not just for my success, but for the path that led here. Sometimes the sweetest victory isn't in proving people wrong, but in helping them become right. The morning of the second location's opening, I stood in the new kitchen, watching Kyson teach our parents the proper way to laminate croissant dough. No, Mom, you need to fold it exactly 3 times, he demonstrated. Remember what Bridget taught us. Precision matters. Like this, Mom's hands were steady as she created perfect layers. Exactly. He beamed. Now you're getting it. Dad checked the proofing drawer temperatures, making notes in the logbook he'd designed himself. His business classes had awakened a passion for systems optimization that none of us had expected. The delivery truck's here, Tiara called from the back door. First wholesale order for the new location. I've got it, Kyson said, wiping his hands. That's my department now. I watched him confidently direct the delivery, checking every item against his meticulous spreadsheet. No shortcuts, no grandiose promises, just honest, careful work. Remember when he couldn't even work the register? Bridget appeared beside me, grinning. Now look at him. Look at all of them, I said. The new location gleamed, ready for its first customers. But more impressive than the shiny equipment and fresh paint was the transformation of my family. Bo walked in through the front door, carrying his signature opening day flowers. Place looks perfect. You ready for the ribbon cutting? Almost. I turned to my family. First, I need to show you something. I led them to the front of the store, where a large frame hung covered by a cloth. With a deep breath, I pulled the fabric away. There, beautifully displayed, was the original Sweet Victory business plan I'd presented at that fateful family dinner. The one they'd dismissed. Beside it hung the newspaper articles, awards, and photos documenting our success. And below them all, a new sign. Sweet Victory South, managed by Kyson Grant. Sawyer! Kyson's voice cracked. You've earned this, I said. All of you have. Mom touched the frame gently. I wish we could go back and do it differently. We can't, I replied, but we can do better going forward. The mayor arrived for the ribbon cutting, along with local press and a crowd of eager customers. As cameras flashed, I handed the scissors to Kyson. This is your moment, I said. You built this location from the ground up, the right way this time. He shook his head. We built it together. He offered me the other handle of the scissors. Family business, remember? As we cut the ribbon together, I saw tears in Dad's eyes. Not the disappointed ones I'd grown used to, but proud ones, finally seeing both his children succeeding on their own terms. The morning rush was intense, but my family moved like a well-oiled machine. Kyson expedited orders with calm efficiency. Mom charmed customers with genuine warmth. Dad's organizational systems kept everything running smoothly. During a brief lull, Bo pulled me aside. You know, revenge would have been easier than redemption. Easier, maybe. I watched Kyson patiently training a new employee, but not sweeter. The day flew by in a blur of customers and congratulations. As we closed up, my family gathered around a table, sharing leftover pastries and stories from the day. Remember my first morning shift? Kyson laughed. I nearly set the kitchen on fire. Remember our first business class presentation? Dad added. We were so nervous. Remember when we thought a bakery was just selling cupcakes? Mom smiled at me. We were wrong about so many things. But you learned, I said. That's what matters. Kyson raised his coffee cup. To Sweet Victory, both locations. To family, Dad added, and second chances. To doing things the right way, Mom chimed in. I looked around at my family, really looked at them. The arrogance was gone from Kyson's eyes, replaced by earned confidence. The dismissiveness had vanished from my parents' faces, transformed into genuine respect. To all of it, I said, raising my cup. The failures that taught us, the success we built, and the family we became. Through the windows, both Sweet Victory signs glowed in the evening darkness, beacons of what we'd built together. Not just successful businesses, but a stronger family, forged in the heat of early morning ovens and tempered by hard-earned wisdom. Sometimes the sweetest victory isn't in proving your worth to others, but in helping them discover their own. And as I watched my family close up their new bakery, their real achievement, I knew we'd all finally learned that lesson. The revenge I'd planned had turned into redemption, and that was the sweetest success of all.